From beyond the veil of the Force, infinite paths stretch before us. Choices made and unmade, destinies fulfilled and averted. Today, we explore one such path. What if Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, never became Darth Vader? What if he rejected the dark side, raised his family, and brought true balance to the Force, not through destruction, but through love? The crimson blade hummed through the air as Chancellor Palpatine unleashed another torrent of Force lightning. Mace Windu's purple lightsaber strained against the electric fury. The Corran Master's face twisted in concentration as he fought to deflect the Sith power back toward its source. The Supreme Chancellor's features had melted away, revealing the twisted, corrupted visage beneath. Yellow eyes burning with malevolence, skin pulled tight over ancient bones. "You're under arrest, my lord," Windu growled, his lightsaber inching closer to Palpatine's throat. The door burst open. Anakin Skywalker stood in the threshold, his eyes wide with horror at the scene before him. By this time, in this moment that would reshape the galaxy, something was different. He'd arrived 30 seconds earlier. 30 seconds that would determine the fate of Trillion. "Anakin!" Palpatine's voice crackled with false desperation. "I told you it would come to this! The Jedi are taking over!" Windu's eyes flicked toward the young knight. "He's a traitor, Skywalker! He's the Sith Lord we've been searching for!" Anakin's hand moved toward his lightsaber. The prophecy. Padme. The visions of her death. Everything he'd been promised by the man who'd been his mentor, his confidant, his father figure for 13 years. His fingers trembled on the hilt. But then, he saw it. Truly saw it. The unnatural yellow of Sidious's eyes. The way the lightning poured from his hands with practiced ease. This wasn't self-defense. This was power. Raw, dark, limitless power. The kind that corrupted absolutely. And in that crystalline moment of clarity, Anakin remembered something Obi-Wan had told him years ago on Naboo. "Be mindful of your thoughts, Anakin. They betray you." His thoughts had been betraying him for weeks. The fear, the desperation, the willingness to do anything, sacrifice anything to save Padme. But standing here now, watching a Sith Lord attempt to murder a Jedi Master, Anakin realized something profound. Palpatine had been cultivating that fear, feeding it, nurturing it like a farmer tends a crop, waiting for the harvest. "No," Anakin said quietly. Instead of drawing his lightsaber, he thrust out his hand. The Force surged through him, not with anger or aggression, but with absolute certainty. Palpatine's lightsaber tore from his grip and flew across the room, clattered against the viewport. The Sith Lord's eyes widened in genuine surprise. "You were my friend," Anakin said, his voice breaking. "I trusted you." Palpatine's surprise transformed into cold calculation. "I can still save her, Anakin. Only I have the power." "You have nothing," Anakin interrupted. "Nothing but lies." Mace Windu moved with lethal precision, his blade at Palpatine's throat. "It's over, Chancellor." Or should I say, Darth Sidious. What Anakin didn't fully comprehend in that moment was the seismic wave he just sent through the Force itself. On Kashyyyk, hundreds of light years away, Grandmaster Yoda's eyes snapped open in the middle of battle. The darkness he'd sensed for so long had suddenly been illuminated, its source revealed like lightning splitting a night sky. "The Chancellor," Yoda whispered. "Sidious, he is." The arrest of Supreme Chancellor Palpatine should have been the end of the story. Instead, it was merely the end of the beginning. Enjoying our alternative Star Wars universe? Consider liking and hitting the hype button to show us your support. Don't forget to subscribe for more mind-bending tales from the Star Wars universe. Within hours, the Senate chambers erupted into chaos. Mas Amedda stood before the assembly, his voice ringing with righteous indignation. "The Jedi have staged a coup. They've arrested our democratically elected leader without trial, without evidence, based solely on religious accusations." Senator Bail Organa of Alderaan rose to counter. "Master Windu and Knight Skywalker both witnessed the Chancellor attack with Force lightning. Sith power. The Jedi Council sensed the darkness through the Force itself. This is not conjecture. Where is the physical evidence?" Amidala demanded. "We have only Jedi making accusations against a democratically elected official. The same Jedi who have commanded our armies, who have amassed unprecedented power during this war, who now seek to eliminate the one man standing between them and total control." The accusations weren't entirely fabricated, and that's what made them so dangerous. The Jedi had become generals, commanders, wielders of both military and mystical authority. They'd been drawn into a role they were never meant to occupy, and now that role was being weaponized against them. Padme Amidala stood in the Organa apartment on Coruscant, watching the Senate feeds with growing dread. Anakin sat beside her, his head in his hands. 3 hours earlier, he'd done what he thought was right. Now, the entire galaxy was turning against the Order. "The Senate will vote to strip the Jedi of their military authority," Padme said quietly. "Possibly to disband the Order entirely." "Let them," Anakin said bitterly. "I'm done with the Order anyway." Padme turned to him, surprised. "Anakin, I went to the council this morning," he said, looking up at her. His eyes were red-rimmed but clear. "I told them everything. About us. About the marriage. About the baby." Her hand instinctively moved to her stomach. "What did they say?" "Obi-Wan stood up for me. So did Yoda, actually." Anakin laughed without humor. Said attachment was not the same as possession. That love was not the path to darkness. Only fear of loss was. "They've known for months, Padme. They've been protecting us." "And the others?" "Windu argued for my expulsion. Ki-Adi-Mundi agreed. But here's the thing. The code they're so desperate to uphold? It's already broken. The Order has been breaking it for years, sending us to war, asking us to lead men into death. We've been violating There Is No Chaos since the first battle of Geonosis. On Mandalore, in the occupied throne room where Darth Maul had been cornered and captured just hours before, Commander Ahsoka Tano stood beside clone Captain Rex as they prepared to transport their prisoner back to Coruscant. The former Sith apprentice sat in force-suppressing restraints, his yellow eyes burning with knowledge of events yet to unfold. Then, Rex's helmet comm crackled. An incoming transmission. Admiral Tarkin's voice. "Captain, you will execute contingency order." Rex's vision went white. For a fraction of a second, his consciousness was completely overridden by something else. Something cold and mechanical. His hand moved toward his holstered blaster, his body no longer his own. Good soldiers follow orders. Ahsoka sensed the disturbance a heartbeat before Rex and the other clone troopers turned their weapons on her. But then, something flickered. The order was incomplete, fragmentary. Maybe it was because Palpatine, locked in a detention cell on Coruscant, couldn't properly activate the neural override. Maybe it was the Force itself intervening. Rex's consciousness surged back. He tore off his helmet, gasping, his blaster aimed at Ahsoka, but his finger frozen on the trigger. What was that?" She deflected blaster bolts from the other clones, some firing with mechanical precision, others struggling against invisible chains. "Rex, fight it!" Some clones continued firing with mechanical precision. Others seemed to struggle, as if fighting against invisible chains. The order was fragmentary, incomplete, like a virus that hadn't fully loaded. In the chaos, Maul, ever the opportunist, shattered his restraints using the Force and vanished into Mandalore's underworld. He would resurface years later, a shadow of his former self. But for now, the greater threat demanded attention. It would take weeks to piece together the truth. The inhibitor chips, implanted in every clone from their earlier gestation on Kamino. Chips designed to override their free will and turn them into assassins at a single code phrase. Order 66 had been partially triggered, enough to reveal its existence, but not enough to complete its horrific purpose. When the truth came out, it shattered what little trust remained between the Republic and its defenders. On Alderaan, in the ancient mountain retreat of House Organa, Padme Amidala gave birth to twins beneath a sky full of stars. The labor was difficult, not because of any Sith curse or dark prophecy, but simply because birth is difficult. Because bringing new life into the universe requires pain and courage and hope. Anakin held her hand throughout, terrified and useless and present in a way no Jedi was supposed to be. When the babies finally came, first a boy with bright, aware eyes, then a girl who looked at the world with the same fierce determination as her mother, Anakin felt something shift inside him. Not the dark whisper of power, but something quieter. Something that sounded like responsibility. "Luke," Padme whispered, holding their son. "After your mother's people." "And Leia," Anakin said, touching his daughter's tiny hand. "Strong. A leader's name." Obi-Wan Kenobi stood in the doorway, his bearded face creased with joy and sorrow in equal measure. "They're beautiful, Anakin. The Council? In chaos. The Senate has voted to suspend Jedi military authority. We're being recalled. All of us. The war is effectively over. The Separatists are surrendering now that Sidious's manipulation has been exposed. But the damage is done." Anakin looked down at his children. "I'm not going back." "I know." Obi-Wan stepped closer. "Master Yoda sent me. He said the Jedi Order must change or die. That perhaps it's already dead. And what comes next will be something new. He thinks you're the one to build it." "I'm not a builder, Obi-Wan. I'm barely even a Jedi anymore." "No," Obi-Wan agreed. "You're something else. Something we'll need in the years to come." The galaxy didn't end with Palpatine's arrest. Evil is never quite so accommodating. Despite being held in the highest security detention facility on Coruscant, under constant surveillance by Jedi guards, Palpatine had one advantage the Republic hadn't fully accounted for: decades of planted loyalists. 6 months after his arrest, during a carefully orchestrated power failure, the Sith Lord escaped. Senate investigation committees argued for months about who was responsible. Some blamed the Jedi for failing to guard him adequately. Others suspected traitors within the military. The truth was simpler and more terrifying. Palpatine had spent years building redundancies into his plans. Even captured, even exposed, his network remained. He vanished into the unknown regions, taking with him the surviving Sith artifacts, the dark side teachings, and a burning desire for revenge. But without his apprentice, without his empire, without the infrastructure he'd spent decades building, he was diminished. Still dangerous, but no longer the existential threat he'd once posed. The Jedi Order did change. It had to. The restrictions on attachments were abolished after years of debate, not because love was suddenly encouraged, but because the Order finally acknowledged that denying natural bonds only forced them into shadows, where fear could fester. Jedi were allowed to have families, to maintain connections to their homeworlds, to be people as well as peacekeepers. Anakin refused appointment to the Council, refused the title of Grand Master, refused every position of authority they offered. Instead, he became something unprecedented, a Jedi who openly prioritized his family, who questioned every tradition, who taught by example rather than doctrine. On Alderaan, the Skywalker children grew up in a strange hybrid existence. They attended regular schools, played with normal children, experienced life beyond the cloister. But at night, Obi-Wan would visit and tell them stories. Not propaganda or dogma, but genuine wisdom about the Force, about responsibility, about the difference between power and strength. Luke was 6 when he first made a toy starfighter float across the room. Leia was 5 when she predicted, with eerie accuracy, how a complicated Senate vote would turn out. Anakin watched his children manifest the same gifts that defined his own life, and felt the cold touch of fear. "Don't," Padme said one evening, seeing the expression on his face. "Don't what? Don't let fear win. You chose to reject it once. Choose again." He trained them gently, carefully, without obsession. Luke learned lightsaber forms the way other children learned to play the piano, structured but not pressured. Leia studied politics and diplomacy, showing little interest in combat but an almost supernatural ability to sense deception and truth. They were 10 when Palpatine made his first real move. The message came on Luke's datapad. personal and untraceable.
Young Skywalker, your father has told you about me, no doubt. About the evil Sith Lord Palpatine. But has he told you about the knowledge I possess? About the aspects of the Force that Jedi forbid? You have such potential, child. Such power waiting to be unlocked. The Jedi will limit you. They will tell you what you can and cannot learn. What you can and cannot feel. But I can show you everything.
Luke, curious and idealistic, almost responded. Almost. Anakin found him staring at the message, his young face troubled. Dad, what does he mean about forbidden knowledge? And here was the moment. The test. Anakin could have destroyed the datapad, shielded his son from the darkness, repeated the same mistakes the Jedi Order had made for 1,000 generations. Instead, he sat down beside Luke. The dark side is real, Anakin said, and it's seductive. It offers quick solutions to complex problems. It promises power without patience. Sidious wants you because you're my son, and corrupting you would be his ultimate victory. What do I do? You choose, every day. The way I chose when I could have struck down Mace Windu but didn't. The way your mother chose to trust me even when I'd given her every reason not to. The Force isn't about being powerful, Luke. It's about being responsible with power. The years rolled on. The Sith remnants launched attacks, sabotage, attempts to destabilize the formed Republic. But without the apocalyptic spectacle of the Death Star, without Alderaan's destruction, the galaxy faced a different kind of struggle. Not a clean war between good and evil, but a messy, complicated peace, where former enemies had to learn to coexist. Leia entered politics at 18, her sharp mind and uncanny intuition making her one of the youngest senators in Republic history. She didn't use her Force sensitivity openly. It made people uncomfortable, reminded them too much of the old Jedi who'd failed them. But she used it all the same, reading emotions, sensing lies, guiding negotiations toward outcomes that served the greatest good. Luke, meanwhile, traveled. He sought out Force-sensitive children not to induct them into an order, but to teach them control, to show them they could be ordinary people with extraordinary gifts, rather than weapons or monks or living prophecies. The final confrontation with Sidious came not with lightsabers, but with choice. The aging Sith Lord, diminished but not defeated, attempted one last grand manipulation. He engineered a crisis that would force Anakin to choose: save a planet from destruction, or save Padme from an assassination attempt. The classic dark side trap. One life you love versus millions you don't know. Anakin, now in his 50s, looked at the choice Sidious had laid before him. And then, he smiled. "You still don't understand," Anakin said. "I'm not alone anymore." Luke saved the planet. Leia thwarted the assassination. Ahsoka, returned from her wandering, confronted Sidious's agents. Obi-Wan dismantled the Sith cult infrastructure. And Anakin? Anakin simply stood in front of Palpatine and said no. "The Sith end with you," Anakin declared. "Not because I'm killing you, but because no one is listening anymore. Your promises are empty. Your power is finite. You're just a bitter old man clinging to a philosophy of selfishness." Sidious died alone, years later, in some forgotten corner of the galaxy. No epic duel, no dramatic redemption, just obsolescence. The Skywalker legacy became something unprecedented in galactic history. Not a dynasty of power, but a lineage of service. Luke reformed Force education, creating a tradition that acknowledged both light and dark while teaching practitioners to choose the light. Leia became Chancellor, guiding the Republic away from the centralized power that enabled Sidious's rise in the first place. And Anakin? Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one, the hero with no fear, the man who could have become the most powerful Sith Lord in history, died peacefully at 73 in the gardens of Alderaan. His wife held his hand. His children stood vigil. "Did I fulfill the prophecy?" he asked Obi-Wan in his final hours. Obi-Wan, old and bent but still sharp-eyed, smiled. "You brought balance to the Force, Anakin. Not by destroying the Sith, but by proving that the dark side's greatest lie, that fear and attachment inevitably lead to evil, was false. You chose love over fear. Everything else followed from that. The galaxy remembered Anakin Skywalker not as Darth Vader, not as a warning, not as a tragedy. They remembered him as the man who stood in a doorway and chose compassion over power, who raised his children to be better than he was, who proved that destiny is not something that happens to you, it's something you make, one choice at a time. The dark side was never his fate. Fear was his test, and he passed. If you enjoyed this journey into an alternative Star Wars universe where destiny takes unexpected turns and balance means something entirely different, make sure to subscribe to our channel. We explore infinite possibilities hidden within the galaxy far, far away, asking the questions that reshape everything you thought you knew. The Force has many paths. Come discover them with us.